The Raiders are trading Maxx Crosby to the Ravens for Baltimore's number 14th pick in the 2026 draft and the Ravens' 2027 first round pick. The trade will be processed March 11th. Let's start with the Raiders' perspective. Matthew, what do you think about this trade?
I mean, it definitely shows that they are in rebuild mode. Maxx Crosby has been with the Raiders for so long, but I feel like this is a trade that, especially if they're going to go down this path, it needed to happen. Now the question is just who are they going to go with at 14 to maybe replace Crosby or fill up any leftover holes on the defense? Uh, and truthfully, I'm a little worried for them because the last couple first round picks for them, looking in the last 10 years or so, obviously the last 2 years with Genty and Bowers, it's been solid so far. But I mean, what you get Colin Farrell, Henry Ruggs, their drafts have not been great. So the key to this trade is nailing 14. And I'm a little skeptical, but overall, I feel like it was a trade that had to happen.
Yeah, I feel like the Raiders are just kind of admitting where they are right now as a franchise. Geno Smith is obviously going to be released, barring a trade as well. So they're looking at two guys who maybe they thought were going to be a part of the future now are not. I think they get a ton back here. It is, like you said, about who they end up taking in the first round. You're trying to replace a star
Yeah.
defensive player with at least a good defensive player, but he didn't really want to be there as much anymore. He really tried to make it work. You're losing a bit of your culture, but you just probably have to move on. You save a little bit of money potentially by doing so. They did just re-sign him or extend him to a 3-year, $106.5 million contract last year. So the Ravens, at the very least, get a couple more years, but the Raiders get off of that. So that I think is good for them. And they get to move forward now without that hanging over their head. And this is a major haul if they can hit on both of them. You're assuming that the Ravens pick, though, of course, is the lower one is going to be this 14th overall one in 2026. Next year, it's probably a safe assumption. I think it's going to be higher than
A
14.
little bit,
So
yeah.
they're going to have to make it work this year, especially.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, for the Ravens, I like this trade for the Ravens. They definitely are in win now mode now. I think they saw the Rams take the swing on McDuffie, and they were like, "Well, we got to do something too." But if you're, we were joking about it before the show. If you're Joe Burrow with that line, oh my gosh, you got to run far away from the AFC North because it's scary right now.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's also a bigger trend that we're seeing in the NFL. Last year, the Eagles got after Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. This year, Drake May was just under duress that entire Super Bowl. Still, the guys who can get to the quarterback are some of the most important pieces in the NFL. And from the Ravens' perspective, if you can get somebody, and they had no semblance of a rush last year. If you could get somebody of Maxx Crosby's caliber, I think giving up 2 first round picks kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
You're anticipating to be in the playoffs next year, and if he can get you a multi-sack game in the postseason, I don't think there's going to be anybody who's arguing this. And obviously, he puts him in a better position to be in the postseason next year. So I like it, and I think it extends kind of a window of truly being a Super Bowl contender for Lamar Jackson and this team, even as they're changing. They had a bit of a regime change now this past offseason. So I think it's a good move for them, and it won't be looked at as an overpay if they can get to the postseason, because I think Maxx Crosby then will be able to do his thing. He's only played one game in the playoffs so far in his career,
yeah.
and the Raiders weren't getting back to the playoffs anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with the Ravens is obviously, Lamar's health. I feel like a healthy Lamar Jackson, I feel like the Ravens can make it back to the playoffs next year. And yeah, you fix a very glaring problem on your defense. I think it's a good trade.
And also, too, when I look at that division, I feel like it's fairly open. It was super competitive last year, but there's a ton of question marks with the rest of those teams. I think we're putting the Browns aside here a little bit because they just don't really know what they're going to do at quarterback next year.
Fair.
But
Yeah.
their defense is extremely talented, and that kept up in a lot of games. And that should just show you how valuable it is to get guys who can get to the quarterback. But just pushing them to a side, the Steelers, major question mark at QB. We have no idea what Aaron Rodgers is going to do
Yeah.
and what kind of process he's going to go through in the offseason. But that is a major question mark unless they get somebody like Kyler Murray. I don't know if I see them replacing Aaron Rodgers necessarily for this upcoming year. And then in the same sense that Lamar Jackson's health is super important for the Ravens, Captain Obvious here, Joe Burrow's health is extremely important to the Bengals.
Yeah.
And if you're the Ravens, you want to make sure that you can get after him if he's out there. And if not, then you make sure that you take care of business against the rest of the teams in the NFL. Because if Joe Burrow's not out there for the Bengals, then their season's
There aren't
practically
Bengals.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, dead on arrival. So I think it puts them in a really good spot within the division. And I do like the move. It's aggressive, and a lot more teams are following that Rams identity. There was something I also saw. I just wanted to bring up too, is that a lot of teams are shelling out multiple first round picks for some defensive guys. We've seen it over the last handful of years. There was obviously a big trade for Khalil Mack a handful of years ago, but Sauce Gardner and Micah Parsons are guys who ended up going for multiple high picks over the last handful of years. So I think that that's something to recognize. You see a lot of people or a lot of teams and front office people get super aggressive on the defensive side of the ball. When you need somebody there, you go out and get it instead of trying to waste your time in the draft.